Called Pete, I called General Kane, I called a lot of our great people. We have great people, and I said, let's talk. We got a problem in the Middle East. We can take a stop and make a little journey into the Middle East and eliminate a big problem. And Pete, I think you were the first one to speak up, and you said, let's do it, because you can't let them have a nuclear weapon.
Let's do it, like stopping for, I don't know, margaritas on the way home. It was Donald Trump last week on Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth's enthusiasm, quote, let's do it. And it came to going to war in Iran. There's brand new reporting in the Financial Times that makes that an alarming admission by Donald Trump. It raises, frankly, frightening questions about just why Pete Hegseth might have responded that way to Donald Trump, why he was so gung-ho. The New York Times writes that, or the Financial Times writes this, quote, a broker for Pete Hegseth, the U.S. Defense Secretary, attempted to make a big investment in major defense companies in the weeks leading up to the U.S.-Israeli attack on Iran. That's according to 3 people who are familiar with the matter. Pete Hegseth's broker at Morgan Stanley contacted BlackRock in February about making a multi-million-dollar investment in the asset manager's Defense Industrials Active ETF, the people said, shortly before the United States launched military action against Tehran. That inquiry on behalf of the high-profile potential client was flagged internally at BlackRock, according to the people familiar with the matter. The investment discussed by Pete Hegseth's broker did not ultimately go ahead, as the fund, which launched in May last year, was not yet available for Morgan Stanley clients to buy. A Pentagon spokesperson responded to the story on social media, quote, this allegation is entirely false and fabricated. Neither Hegseth nor any of his representatives approached BlackRock about any such investment. Of course, that's not what the reporting says, but okay. It's just the latest, though, piece of reporting in this vein that raises questions about the additional dangers posed by the Trump administration and the ability of members of the cabinet to make financial bets and investments while in office. Here's Senator Elissa Slotkin on national security implications. Watch.
No one in the government, whether you're a career government person or a political appointee like the president and his kids, anybody, no one should be able to place a bet based on insider information they have on, especially on issues of war and peace. And so what we know from the, I mean, it's just a simple, but just to put it in perspective, you know, you would have people before we went into Venezuela. You had a bunch of people get online anonymously and go onto the prediction markets and say, I bet we're going to have some military action in Venezuela tomorrow, and made a ton of money. Same thing ahead of the Iran war. And these are people we can assume who have insider information that we're launching military operations. Number one, that's insider trading. Number two, it's also a complete operational security risk. If you're the Iranians and you're sitting there and you're like, I noticed there's a bunch of bets coming in for a war tomorrow. It's like, oh, I think we're about to have a war. So I think that it's like just a bad thing all around.
During our coverage, former Assistant Special Agent in charge at the FBI, National Security and Intelligence Analyst Michael Feinberg is back. We're going to start with Democratic Congressman Robert Garcia of California. He's a ranking member of the House Oversight Committee. Congressman, if the committee were to proceed and investigate this, the defense secretary's own statement is sort of a riddle wrapped in a lie. The story doesn't allege that Pete Hegseth contacted BlackRock. The Financial Times is reporting that Pete Hegseth's broker at Morgan Stanley contacted BlackRock, and an internal alert system was set off by a, quote, multi-million-dollar investment request for a product that wasn't even available outside of BlackRock. It feels like something begging to be investigated. Is this on your radar?
Well, this is complete corruption. And not only is it on our radar, in fact, today we are opening an investigation into what is incredibly serious. And both Morgan Stanley and BlackRock will be receiving letters from myself and the Oversight Committee today, asking a series of questions to preserve documents. The reality is we need answers. And we're also, today, we've contacted Secretary Hegseth. We also are expecting him to answer our questions. I mean, the idea that our Secretary of Defense or War, or whatever he wants to call himself, is trying to make money, to enrich himself off playing games with our military is pure corruption and insane. First, he should never be trading stocks as it relates to defense in the first place. And the fact that his own broker at Morgan Stanley, which, by the way, this is being claimed by multiple people. The allegation is coming from multiple sources that are being reported. And it's also being reported that the folks at BlackRock were very concerned about this. And the fact that the secretary's broker at Morgan Stanley is trying to invest in war, where we know very well that Pete Hegseth has the power to deploy our troops. I think this is some of the most serious reporting that we've seen out of this administration as it relates to the Pentagon. And what I told the team earlier today as we were discussing this is, look, we have a lot of big investigations right now, whether it's Jeffrey Epstein, whether it's Kristi Nolan, what she did to DHS with Lewandowski, whether it's RFK Jr. at HHS. But this also has to be a serious investigation because we're talking about war and peace and about launching a foreign war that could possibly enrich the Secretary of Defense.
Congressman, you've got in the Trump administration a cabal that seems to operate with impunity. But would you spread the word to financial institutions that they won't be there forever, that Democrats might be in control as early as November, and all of this will be investigated? I mean, this is, again, reporting about an internal check inside BlackRock. I just want to be really specific. Quote, the inquiry on behalf of the high-profile potential client was flagged internally at BlackRock, according to people familiar with the matter. I mean, we know that Pete Hegseth uses Signal. We know that he has in the past communicated classified information on Signal. Would you sort of investigate from the other side, from the financial institutions back to the Trump cabinet in terms of whether or not they have classified information in their possession?
I mean, that's absolutely right, and exactly what we're actually going to do. Look, we've been discussing throughout the day our approach here. Now, both BlackRock and Morgan Stanley, if they haven't received our letter, they will by the end of the day. We've contacted them. They're aware. We are asking them a series of questions. We expect them to comply. They're also very aware that the majority right now in Congress and Mike Johnson, they're not going to be there forever. And if things go a certain way, we will be the ones with the subpoena power and the ability to ask these questions and get this information. We expect Morgan Stanley and BlackRock to comply. They're going to be asked questions by the Oversight Committee, and this is of the highest concern. This is not just, by the way, a corruption issue. This is a national security issue. We're talking about our military. We're talking about the secretary who leads the Pentagon, and his broker is trying to cut deals and buy a package of stocks through BlackRock related to defense. This is pure corruption. And I think we have to be very serious at this moment. The fact that this war has been launched, there's clearly been a distraction, that we still have no real explanation as to why and what's happening. We're seeing already what's happening in Venezuela with the profiting. We're seeing what's happening with Jared Kushner and Middle East, profiting through this investment firm in the billions of dollars for that firm. All of this goes back to what is the most corrupt president and administration in history, and we must investigate it thoroughly.
What is your sense of whether or not Republicans, now that Trump is at 33% in the polls, sending ground troops into Iran, polls at about 8%, you've got an open revolt among key MAGA figures like Megyn Kelly and Tucker Carlson. What is your sense as to whether or not this could also be bipartisan, as the Epstein investigation is?
Well, the one thing that we have learned from the Epstein investigation is that when you push real hard and you get the American public to stand with you, you can actually make progress even within the MAGA base and Republicans, and we've seen that. And the same goes as it relates to our investigation with Secretary Noem. Look, we put a lot of pressure there, and she stepped aside. And she was, the White House saw what was happening, and that there was real anger even amongst their own base. I mean, Donald Trump's been underwater on issues of immigration. As it relates to this issue in the Pentagon and Secretary Hegseth, I think the same has to be true. We've got to apply the same level of pressure because you are seeing those cracks, and you are starting to hear from Republicans that are starting to look at their electorate and seeing a very pissed off electorate, even within conservative base. Republicans also can't explain why we are in Iran, why we're doing what we're doing. They're the only explanation that someone is profiting off this war. People are making an enormous amount of money. And I think this reporting by the Financial Times is actually quite breathtaking in the scope and the level of corruption that it could represent and the harm that it could represent to the men and women who serve our country.
Absolutely. It's a stunning story. We'll continue to stay in touch with you as your investigation proceeds. Thank you for sharing that news with us today, Congressman.